Welcome to Cybersecurity Awareness TV, episode number 425, recorded March 25th, 2023. My name is Mac Jackson Jr. I am your cybersecurity researcher and host. If this is the first time you have seen my show here on WWDBTV, I discuss cybersecurity tips that you could use to protect yourself, your family from the fastest growing crimes of the 21st century. And those are cyber crimes, folks. I would like to thank everybody who's been part of our show here on WWDBTV and our viewers and listeners from around the world. Also, I'd like to send a quick shout out to my students at DeVry University. Thank you guys for being supportive of it here on WWDB-TV. If you'd like to find out more about my brand and the products and services I offer in protecting cybersecurity for your business or individually, you can go to my website at macjacksonjr.com. That's macjacksonjr.com, or go to my website, VandersonCyberGroup.com, for business consulting for your organization. Remember, folks, we are on all social media. Remember to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button, folks, to keep on top of the latest of what's going on in cybersecurity awareness. If you also would like to be a sponsor of our show, you could easily contact my office at 702-868-0808 and be a sponsor of Cybersecurity Awareness TV show here in the WWTV. Or if you'd like to also put together a show for your organization as well, definitely contact us. We would love to talk to you. In today's episode, we're going to discuss cybersecurity news, the evolving landscape of cyber crimes, folks, and it is definitely gets more intense every week. There's another story going on about cybersecurity from around the world. In our second segment, we will explore FBI warnings concerning SIM card swapping. Yeah, that's right, folks. Your smartphones. Hackers and scammers are targeting your smartphones, and they can steal your smartphone from you without you knowing it. In a third segment, as we do every week, we talk about business tips on how you can be more productive and keep your organization secure from cyber threats. In our first story, the evolving landscape of cybersecurity. This evolving landscape, folks, of cybersecurity affects us from around our digital world. Data breaches are becoming an all too common occurrence. Each of the passing years, cyber criminals are getting more sophisticated, and businesses of all sizes become victims of this type of cyber crimes. Here at WWTV, we aim to educate everyone and let you know what the threats are of these cyber crimes and what you can do. In our first story today, we're going to discuss ransomware as it poses a significant threat to the healthcare sector, particularly the rural communities where hospitals and clinics may be limited to cybersecurity information, how to protect their organization or infrastructure from these types of attacks. These attacks involve hackers using ransomware to lock up the computer systems from the hospitals where the hospital staff, are limited in what they can do to help their patients. And this can be life and death when it comes to patient care. Many hospital medical devices in the hospitals and clinics are connected to the internet. And by having these devices, medical devices, connected to the internet, if they are locked up or breached, hospital staff cannot give the patients the care that they need. And the hackers can gain control of these devices, causing physical harm to the patients and disrupting the critical care and information. According to the Healthcare Information and Management Systems Society, HIMSS, H-I-M-S-S, 80% of healthcare systems plan to increase their investment into the digital healthcare by providing more cybersecurity protection within the next 5 years. This is a good thing. And by resulting of this, it will give a more substantial protection for the rural hospitals and hospital communities and practitioners are in our country for 2023. Even though with this advancement, these hospitals in rural areas are still using old, outdated software and systems. So we're hoping that with more help and assistance from businesses and from our government, we can help these establishments in the healthcare industry improve their cybersecurity posture. This week, during the Senate Homeland Security Committee hearing, senators questioned witnesses regarding the cybersecurity in the healthcare industry. I have a story to report to you from Forbes News.
Questions?
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to witnesses for joining us today. Last year, when Yuma Regional Medical Center fell victim to a ransomware attack, 700,000 patients were notified that their personal health data had been stolen. But when a hospital is hacked, it's not just Arizonan-sensitive data that's placed at risk. Particularly in rural communities where alternative hospitals may not be available, crippling cyber attacks can literally be matters of life and death. This is also true in other healthcare contexts. Last year, the National Suicide Hotline was brought offline by a cyber attack, resulting in an entire day where Arizonans facing mental health emergencies could not call 988 and receive the support they needed. So my first question is for Mr. Drayson. Imagine looking in the eyes of a parent whose child may have called the suicide hotline on December 1st, but wasn't able to get through due to the cyber attack. I'm committed to ensuring that our nation's suicide prevention system is better prepared for the next attack. So the question for you is, what lessons should other public health stakeholders take from the hack on the 988 lifeline?
Thank you, Senator, for your question. It's unfortunate the event on the 988 attack was a sobering reminder of the impact to critical healthcare services when cyber attacks have successful outcomes. It reminds us all of the importance of being very aware of the risks we face as a healthcare sector to deliver those services, the need to have an adequately funded and staffed team that can implement the protections to protect us, and the understanding that we can only do so much to protect us and can't eliminate all risk, and so it requires the partnership of the government to help us provide additional protections, increasing risk and consequences for those who attack us, and the understanding and the support when we are attacked that we're the victims, and help us work through that process and don't penalize us for being attacked.
Thank you. Ms. Pierce, a few years ago, hackers took Wickenburg Community Hospital, the only hospital in a small Arizona community, offline. Fortunately, the talented IT team in Wickenburg had backed up the hospital's data and then worked around the clock to quickly rebuild their system from scratch. But not all community hospitals or other rural or tribal healthcare providers are so fortunate. Many simply do not have the resources or the cybersecurity expertise to quickly recover. So given your experience with the rural health system, can you discuss some of the unique cybersecurity challenges that are facing smaller hospitals?
Thank you for the question. I think that smaller hospitals have a varying degree of ability to recover from those attacks. One of the things that's imperative is that the attacks are identified and remediated quickly. So I'm not aware of the particular attack you're speaking of, but I would imagine that they identified quickly that there was an issue, took things offline immediately, and were able to restore from backup. Many times cyber attackers have been within the network and been able to not only compromise existing systems, but have also compromised the backups. So the challenges can be extensive in recovery to that, and we've seen some health systems, even larger systems, take weeks, if not months, to recover. So I would say that there's no one answer to that. It's there's just a wide range of abilities and talent within rural communities, and I think that your particular hospital was the exception, not the rule, when it comes to cyber attacks.
Thank you. Mr. Garcia, today ransomware attacks against hospitals are mostly financially motivated, but tomorrow cyber attacks may target specific patients with the intent to kill or injure them. As more Arizonans receive wireless medical device implants, the possibility that a hacker could disable a pacemaker or manipulate an insulin pump is something we need to take seriously. So how could public and private sectors get ahead of this threat and ensure that wireless medical devices meet the most rigorous cybersecurity standards?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you, Senator. There is a lot of work being done in ensuring the security of a variety of connected medical devices, wireless and wired and otherwise. The idea of pacemakers and such. The one issue about that is it is one of those low probability, high impact kinds of events. You have to be right next to somebody with a phone to actually communicate with the pacemaker. I think what we can...
Right now.
Yes, right now. And what we're concerned about, however, is a much broader attack where patient data can be corrupted in a much broader scale within a hospital system so that anybody who is being treated in the hospital can be given the wrong dose of medicine or the wrong treatment based on corrupted data about their specific patient data. That's the much higher risk that we need to be concerned about. Meanwhile, the medical device industry, through the Sector Coordinating Council, is working hard to develop standards of practice for how you design, develop, manufacture cybersecurity into medical devices, connected wirelessly, Bluetooth, whatever, from the ground up, so that they are secure by design. That is an ongoing and long-term program that that the medical device community is acutely aware of.
Thank you. Mr. Drayson, if a ransomware attack affects an emergency room, even if we're able to restore those systems within 1 hour, some patients may not live that long. So this sense of urgency incentivizes hospitals to pay ransoms to hackers, something, of course, that the FBI and CISA advise against. Although paying may protect specific patients and hospitals in the short term, it also, of course, guarantees and perhaps incentivizes that hackers will continue targeting hospitals in the future. So how do you believe that hospitals should navigate the decision of whether or not to pay a ransom? And how can the federal government help hospitals enhance their cyber attack prevention and mitigation capabilities so that the question of whether to pay or not to pay becomes irrelevant?
It's our policy to align with the FBI guidance to not pay ransomware, and so we do everything we can to mitigate the risk that that's going to happen. We do that by evaluating the risks we have to our organization of a cyber attack, making investments with our leadership support to ensure we have protections in place to reduce the likelihood that that's going to happen. So the support we can gain from the government to help further mitigate that risk is improved threat intelligence sharing that's actionable and near real time, so we can have the most up-to-date information available to us to help protect us, as well as, again, reinforcing educational programs that can help train qualified staff that we can have work with us to ensure we can implement the best practice recommendations to protect our organization.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Folks, some measures recommended by the cybersecurity community, which I'm a part of as a practitioner, for the healthcare organizations, things that they could do to protect their organizations from cyber crime and cyber thefts to help mitigate some of the damage of this type of attacks include regular training of their staff in promoting cybersecurity awareness on understanding the risk and best practices that can be related to their organization. Strong password, multi-factor authentication can be used to secure access to systems and data, folks. Implementation of firewalls and regular software updates to address vulnerabilities within their computer systems. Develop and test incident response plans to mitigate the impact of cyber attacks if they occurred. By taking these steps, the healthcare industry and their providers can reduce the risk of cyber attacks and ensure that patients' care remains uninterrupted. Cybersecurity organizations also recommend that the healthcare organizations must continue to invest in cybersecurity measures to protect themselves and their patients against this growing threat of cyber crimes, folks. The United States has taken several steps in addressing cybersecurity threats to our power grids and our infrastructure across our country. The Department of Energy, DOD, has been working closely with industry partners to identify and mitigate cyber risk and develop strategies to respond to potential cyber attacks. In 2019, the DOE announced the creation of the Office of Cybersecurity, Energy Security, and Emergency Response, SESER, right, to improve the cybersecurity and resilience of the nation's energy infrastructure. The office has been tasked to ensure that the cybersecurity energy sector has developing a plan to respond and recover from cyber attacks. This is something that our nation and our government's working on, and this is some good news that we want to make sure that our viewers and our listeners know. In addition to the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, SISA, has been working with the Department of Energy to develop guidelines and best practices to ensure that the electrical grid and other critical infrastructures are protected. During the previous report that we aired here regarding the Homeland Security Senate committee hearing, the senators were asking witnesses questions about it, and this is a clip that I want to show you from our local senator here from the state of Nevada, Senator Cortez. Here's this clip.
You. Senator Cortez Masto.
Thank you. This is a great conversation, and so appreciate it. Let me say this. I agree. This position needs to be elevated. This should have been done a long time ago, under previous administrations. I just have to say this is a conversation that we keep having over and over and over again. It is time to do something on so many levels. And let me just bring you back here, because when I was Attorney General of the state, I created the Technological Crimes Division to address all these issues. At that time, we were talking about the need to secure by design products. It is so ridiculous that we take all these off the shelf and then try to superimpose some cybersecurity on it. Now we're going into the 21st century with this new technology, and we're not forcing this secure by design, because now it still is first to the market. It's a crazy conversation, but we've been having it for the last 20 years. So I'm so frustrated, as you can tell, with this conversation that we repeat over and over, and it's time we do something about it. We have to elevate this discussion. We have to make sure we make it a priority at the federal level. The states want it. I wanted it when I was working in the state. We all need to be collaborating for the very reasons that you are all talking about. Now, let me just take it to one specific area that I'm concerned, because we have oversight over this, which is the electrical grid. The transformers conversation is not new. It is something, again, there's not only books written about it, but it is an issue that we keep talking about. I know this, you all know this. We have transformers in this country. Let's just take the high voltage transformers. Now, they make up less than 3% of US transformers, but they carry 60 to 70% of the nation's electricity. And there has been widespread agreement among government agencies, utilities, manufacturers, that HV transformers in the US are vulnerable to a terrorist attack and are natural disaster, and that such an attack potentially could have catastrophic consequences. Why? Because these transformers are extremely large and complex grid equipment, which typically takes 18 to 24 months to develop and install. This is not new. This is something we've known. And so my question, I guess, for all of you, and let me start with you, Mr. Kumar, is what else should we be doing here? You identified in response to the chairman's question to you about this partnership with the private sector. It is not new, this issue. You identified a labor issue. Yeah, it's there. What are we doing about it?
Senator, thank you for the question. We, as a result of some of the conversations we've been having on the availability of some of this equipment, first and foremost, we recognize that things like domestic manufacturing are something that we need to really be focused on as a government.
Yeah, I know that we need to focus on it, but what are we doing about it? Yeah. What do you need to tell us that can help your department figure out how we partner with the private sector, because the private sector is key to all of this, and address this very issue that we have been talking about for years now? What do you need from us?
I appreciate you asking that. I think we're thinking of this problem as both a short-term problem and a medium and long-term problem. So domestic manufacturing is not going to address the short-term issues. It's going to address the medium and long-term issues. Short-term, one of the things we have been talking about is allocating funds for the Defense Production Act to actually start to incentivize building transformers here in the United States. That is a short-term solution. The other solutions we're working with the utilities and manufacturers on are thinking through apprenticeship programs to bring people into the trade of building transformers. So we've actually connected the Department of Labor and the Department of Commerce with manufacturers, and we're going to be actioning some of that effort going forward. Another area where we're going to be focusing on is standardization. So how do we reduce the production times to develop some of these big pieces of equipment, as you rightfully noted? They take, in some cases, 18 months plus for large power transformers. How do we increase the speed of the production of some of those transformers? So standardization is another piece that we're going to be looking at. And finally, my colleagues in the Office of Electricity are focused on how do we make transformers more modular? How do we make the production and movement of these big pieces of equipment through innovation and R&D? How do we make it easier to build some of these things going forward? So we need to be looking at all of those areas that you rightfully noted, ma'am.
Thank you, and I only have so much time left. Any other panelists want to comment on this as well?
I would just briefly state that the electric utilities have done an amazing job, and they're highly regulated already. Put more requirements on the vendors. As a vendor, my software is deployed in nuclear power plants and rail providers and things like that, and we made the extremely costly choice to put 100% of our software developers as U.S. citizens in the U.S. Why do I have that choice as a vendor servicing national security requirements?
Thank you. Anything else?
I'd just add that that the supply chain diversity and vendors is really one of the ways we're looking at to help manage the risk. We do realize it. We have sharing agreements where we can share transformers across and focus on the managing of the supply as well as the cyber risk. So
Thank you. Thank you. Very helpful. Appreciate it.
The International Counter Ransomware Initiative, CRI, is a global effort that leads at the United States, that's led by the United States, that is, and other leading nations to combat against ransomware. Members are committed to build a collective resilience to ransomware, counter illicit financing, and collaboration with the private sector in developing best practices against cybersecurity threats, especially ransomware, worldwide. This group is committed to working together internationally in sharing information from the private sector and the governmental sectors in events and things that they can do, and sharing information to combat against these types of crime. This is something good that the United States is a part of with other international companies, and we definitely give them kudos and support this organization and what they're doing. The United States' efforts in protecting our critical infrastructure and combating cyber threats are ongoing and multifaceted. Through this initiatives of the International Counter Ransomware Initiative and this collaboration with industries, governments are working to ensure that the cybersecurity resilience can be eradicated worldwide. And with this kind of work and working together, we can do it. It takes all of us, folks, and that's what we're working on now. Folks, criminals are always looking for ways to acquire and find victims when it comes to cyber crimes. We can all do our part to become more aware of these types of cyber crimes. If you'd like to read more about this, you can go to my website. I do have blogs and white papers on this particular subject matter. You can find them at macjacksonjr.com/mac-blogs. That's Mac, M-A-C-K-S -blog. Folks, we must stay #cyberwoke. Thank you, folks. We'll be right back after these messages. Hello, folks. This is Mac Jackson Jr. from Vanderson Cyber Group. The problem with businesses today is that they are affected by cyber attacks from around the world, but companies are not sure of what to do. Normally, they are reactive instead of proactive. But folks, cyber attacks can affect your bottom line, and it will affect you financially, legally, and your business reputation. Here at Vanderson Cyber Group, we can help you develop a policy by training your employees on what to do if they are involved in a cyber attack and how to mitigate it and fight against it. Folks, we call it here #StayCyberWoke. And that's Vanderson Cyber Group here in Las Vegas and around the world. You can reach me, folks, at VandersonCyberGroup.com or my website, MacJacksonJr.com as well. Here locally, 702-868-0808. Give us a call today, folks. We must fight back. Hi, folks. Welcome back to Cybersecurity Awareness TV. I'm your host, Mac Jackson Jr. In this segment, we are discussing and exploring FBI warnings. This week, folks, we are talking about the SIM card swapping. Yes, that's right, folks, for your cell phone. According to the FBI, the rise of SIM card scams are growing concern with smartphone users. This scam involves a fraudster gaining access to the user's SIM card either by convincing the mobile carrier to transfer the phone number to a new SIM card or by physically stealing the SIM card from the actual cell phone user themselves. Once the scammer has control of the SIM card, they can access the victim's online accounts, including banking and social media accounts, as well as interrupting their phone calls and text messages. The SIM card scam is on the rise, and the reports to the victims are increasing. Criminals use this increasing sophisticated technique to trick the carriers to transfer this information. Cell phone users should take several precautions to protect themselves from this type of scam, right? This includes setting up a PIN code or password to protect their personal account. And also, as we mentioned on the show, use two-factor authentication, multi-factor authentication, folks. And that's another way to combat this type of crime. It is definitely on the increase, and the stories are just exploding right now. We're getting information in our office from these types of scams, and we want to make you aware of them. We have a story to report to you from WVUE Fox 8 News for this story. Check this out.
In New Orleans says their lives were put on hold after scammers stole their cell phone. The thieves got access to personal information, including a bank account wiped clean. David Jones shows us how the scam works and how you can protect yourself in a special report, SIM Swap.
Actually, after having this happen and finding out about the other cases, it definitely seems like they're preying on vulnerable people. It's been
yeah, it was like invasion of privacy.
Yeah, I definitely feel violated.
In a matter of minutes, this young couple's world was turned upside down. It all happened after a night out in the French Quarter when they ordered a ride.
A car pulled up, said, "Are you waiting on a Lyft or an Uber?" And we said yes, assuming it was our ride, and got in.
Christopher Buckley and Ezekiel Fernandez Lopez got in the car thinking it was their Lyft driver.
We noticed there was somebody in the back seat, which was a little odd, but we pulled off with them anyway, and they just kind of drove around the French Quarter.
That's when they say the driver and passenger ordered them out of the car. After they drove off, Buckley realized he did not have his cell phone.
We figured because we have a lock pin that nobody could access the phone, and we also figured, we can just call them whenever our phone charges and meet up with them so they can give it back.
They said they would meet us at the bar and give it back, but they never showed up.
Buckley and Lopez say they became the victims of fraud, specifically SIM swap fraud, a relatively new phenomenon with devastating consequences. Within 10 minutes, Buckley says he was locked out of his iCloud accounts.
At that point, they had access to all of my accounts through iCloud. They had access to my TurboTax records. They had access to my bank account, to all of my email addresses. They stole over $7,000 from my bank account alone. They were able to charge my credit card through Apple Pay.
A lot of phones still have the micro SIM cards or SIM cards, right? It's just basically putting a working card into a phone that's unlocked, and you basically get straight to work.
Cybersecurity expert Nam Nguyen says SIM swapping can happen one of two ways. Hackers can either contact your cell phone provider, like T-Mobile or Verizon, and impersonate you, convincing that provider to port your telephone number to their device. Or the SIM card can physically be taken out of the phone and switched.
It wouldn't be impossible to take that SIM card out and put it into another smartphone, maybe one that you own or that is unlocked and has no passcode on the phone. So basically, if you slide that SIM card in, you can start sending and receiving telephone calls and text messages.
Once they do that, they've got what they need to beat the two-factor authentication many of us use on different apps, from banking to social media to emails.
All they had to do was hit forgot password and get that, or that reset pin sent to his phone number.
They had access to everything in my phone, all of my photo library, every conversation I've had. They have our address, our PIN code for a door, like everything was in my phone.
And the scheme is growing in popularity. From 2018 to 2020, the FBI reported just 320 SIM swap related complaints nationwide, with total losses of approximately $12 million. But that number skyrocketed in 2021. Coming out of the pandemic, the FBI says it received more than 1,600 complaints just that year, with victims' losses totaling $68 million nationwide.
Back in the early 90s, all you had was the home computer. Now we're all carrying the computer in our pockets.
Josh Morrow is a special agent with the FBI in New Orleans.
Once they control that phone, they could go find that information and then easily get into all your other accounts.
According to the FBI's Internet Crimes Report for 2022, there were more than 2,000 complaints of SIM swapping nationwide, with more than $72 million stolen. 18 complaints to the FBI were recorded in Louisiana, but the number of victims is likely higher.
It's something that I would say is growing based on the technology that's out there. I'm hoping that, we'll combat that with technology in the future to lessen the problem.
What I really want to get across with this story, what can our viewers do to protect themselves?
What our viewers can do to protect themselves is first call your cell phone provider and ask them for help in protecting against porting your number out. They will probably recommend a couple things.
Wynn says having two-factor authentication is a good thing, but there are some extra steps you can take to protect yourself from SIM swapping. The first, use a third-party authentication app like Google Authenticator or Microsoft Authenticator. Morrow says the FBI recommends not advertising your phone number, address, or financial information on social media and not storing passwords or usernames on your apps. Also, Wynn says if you have a physical SIM card, lock it.
Most phones should be able to lock that SIM. There's probably a default password on the SIM card, and you have to have that. You might be able to call your telephone provider and say, hey, can you help me get my default password? Every time the phone is rebooted, or if somebody takes out the SIM and puts it into another card, another phone, the SIM's locked. You have to have that code before you can actually start using a phone.
Buckley and Lopez say they have been fighting with their bank for nearly a month, trying to convince fraud investigators they did not make the transactions. They say they still do not have their money back, but they're determined to get a message out there. SIM swapping is real, it's happening in New Orleans, and it can rock your world when you least expect it.
We shouldn't be held back from enjoying our lives because, somebody else might take advantage of us at a vulnerable time. As adults, we feel like the decision to have a few drinks shouldn't be an issue
or a reason to be targeted.
David Jones, Fox 8, Local First.
Folks, authenticating methods can be effective use to protect yourselves from these types of SIM card swapping. Two-factor authentication is an example of adding an extra layer of security that requires a user to enter a code sent to them by a trusted device to their app, in addition to using their username and password. This process means that even if the fraudsters gain access to the user's SIM card and attempt to log into their account, they can do so with having additional validation information. Similarly, biometrics can also be used as a authenticating process, like facial recognition or a fingerprint, as another extra step. Using these authentication methods, cell phone users can better protect themselves against the growing threat of this SIM card risk. Again, folks, like we always say here on this show, we must stay aware. What I'd like for everyone to do, hearing this message from this clip in our last segment, is to tell a friend. Tell a friend what you've learned from this show, so they themselves can tell other people. The more people that are aware of these type of preventions and protections, the harder it will take hackers and scammers to try to exploit your information from you folks. Again, folks, like we always say on this show, hashtag stay cyber woke. We will see you back here in just a minute.
Hi everybody, Aaron Phillips here, inviting you to join me every Saturday from 12 to 1 p.m. right here on Worldwide Digital Broadcasting TV on my show, Aaron's Hour with Aaron Phillips. I bring to you the movers and shakers of Las Vegas and really all around the world. It's also fun, entertaining, silly, goofy, informative, everything you'd want to be entertained by on a Saturday, except no politics, no religion. As I said, it's designed to be a fun show. Remember, that's every Saturday from 12 to 1 p.m. Pacific, right here, Aaron's Hour, Worldwide Digital Broadcasting TV.
Hi, I'm Judy Morio. I invite you to watch my show, What's Your Story with Judy Morio on WWDBTV, where I interview celebrities, doctors, authors, professional speakers, and just plain folks like you and me. So watch my show and also watch some of the other great shows that we have here on WWDB-TV, and you can also find us on Roku.
Hi folks, welcome back to Cybersecurity Awareness TV. I'm your host, Mac Jackson Jr. In this segment, we're talking business tips for productivity and security, things you can protect yourself. So in this episode, we've talked about the growing threats of healthcare industry. We talked about our electrical grid, and we also talked about SIM cards as well, the SIM card swapping that's going on, and what you could do to protect yourselves. The first thing that we talk about every week, and again, I want to really emphasize this, every week we talk about the passwords. Yes, folks, I know I talk about passwords every week, but folks, that's our first line of defense. It's like the front door of your home. You got to make sure that it's locked. And that's the simplest way to protect thieves from coming into your house. Well, that's the simplest way now that we have to protect your data, your personal information, to have a strong password. But what we say on this show, it is a passphrase. Cybersecurity professionals like myself, we're telling our clients to use passphrases, which consist of 18 to 20 characters or more, upper and lower case, special character, usually the English sentence, something easy for you to remember, but harder for the cyber criminal or hacker to remember. This will give you an extra layer of protection, folks. So make sure you use a passphrase. Secondly, as we talked about in this episode, multi-factor authentication. Using a multi-factor authentication gives you extra layer of protection when you are trying to get information from a website. It's a way for the website or the system that you are trying to access verifies your identity using biometrics from a thumbprint or facial recognition. These are just some of the things that you could do to protect yourself, folks, from these types of cyber crimes. Also, we are working on a project right now called ChatGPT Education 101. It's a course that we're going to be offering for users to understand and use of AI, artificial intelligence. And folks, if you aren't familiar with ChatGPT, you need to. It will change the way you conduct your business in productivity and competing with your competitors worldwide. If you don't understand ChatGPT, definitely contact me or go to my website at macjacksonjr.com or Venison Cyber Group and you'll be able to get information on it. Or if not that, just go ahead and Google it, ChatGPT. There's tons of information out there. You need to find out how you could use it to help your business grow. And folks, it's absolutely amazing what you can do with it. These are just some of the things we covered, and we're glad to be a part of our show this week on Cybersecurity Awareness TV. Remember to join us every week and tell a friend what you've learned about here, folks. Find out more information on how to protect yourself and your family from the fastest growing crimes of the 21st century. Folks, we'll see you next week here on Cybersecurity Awareness TV. I'm your host, Mac Jackson. #StayCyberWoke, folks. See you then.